What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Welcome back to some more Bible reading. Alright, so this time we've got Genesis 49. Last time we didn't really get any updates on the broader situation regarding, the famine and whatnot. We just essentially got Jacob's blessing pronouncement upon Joseph and his sons. So, yeah, it's not a whole lot to say that would be super important to know going into this chapter. So I guess we'll just kind of hop right into this. So, chapter 49. Then Jacob called together all his sons and said, "Gather around me, and I will tell you what will happen to each of you in the days to come." So I suppose this is sort of a continuation of a sort, for the blessings that he pronounced upon Joseph and his sons. This is almost equivalent to, like a last will sort of thing. So it seems. Anyway, verse 2. "Come and listen, you sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel, your father. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are first in rank and first in power. But you are as unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to bed with my wife. You defiled my marriage couch." Okay, yeah. You tend to not exactly get high praise or blessings if you do something that dishonors or is otherwise displeasing to somebody. Verse 5. "Simeon and Levi are two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. May I never join in their meetings. May I never be a party to their plans. For in their anger they murdered men, and they crippled oxen just for sport. A curse on their anger, for it is fierce. A curse on their wrath, for it is cruel. I will scatter them among the descendants of Jacob. I will disperse them throughout Israel." Okay, so these are not exactly sounding very much like, blessings so far. I mean, he literally said a curse on Simeon and Levi. But anyway, I'm trying to think. I guess, were Simeon and Levi the primary antagonists, so to speak? The primary how to put it? The primary actors in the situation with was it Dinah? Because there was a sister who had been defiled, so to speak, and whenever they had lived in a certain area, Shechem, yeah, that whole situation. Sorry, I was trying to remember the whole situation in Shechem. I'm trying to think if they were the ones who kind of primarily went about and killed the men after trying to make it seem like they were going to make an agreement to do business with and marry the people in that area. And then Jacob was like, "What in the world have you done? There's no way we're going to be able to stay here or we're going to get attacked." So anyway, if those two were the primary instigators of that, then yes, I can understand this pronouncement upon them. See, sometimes previous events make greater sense out of some of these things that are said or done. Anyway, alrighty. Let's continue along. Verse 8. Judah, your brothers will praise you. You will grasp your enemies by the neck. All your relatives will bow before you. Judah, my son, is a young lion that has finished eating its prey. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse him? The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants, until the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor. He ties his foal to a grapevine, the colt of his donkey to a choice vine. He washes his clothes in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes are darker than wine, and his teeth are whiter than milk. Okay. I have some thoughts regarding that, but let's take a look at footnotes here real quick. From between his feet. Nope. Sorry. Scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from his descendants. Yeah, that says from between his feet. Interesting. Until the coming of the one to whom it belongs. Footnote says, I should just keep doing it this way. Footnote says, or until tribute is brought to him and the peoples obey. Traditionally rendered until Shiloh comes. Interesting. But this whole scepter not departing from Judah thing. So, quick peek at future events. The land of Israel eventually becomes a fairly significant kingdom, but then shortly after it even has kings to begin with, they essentially disobey God. Eventually they split into two different kingdoms, the northern kingdom being Israel and the lower kingdom being Judah. And assuming I'm remembering that right anyway, it's either Judah or Judea, but I think it's Judah. So, interesting mention about the ruler's staff, since there will be kings specifically in Judah. And I think that line of, descendants ends up way further down the line being the ancestry of Jesus himself, which is what I get from, the coming of the one to whom it belongs, the one whom all nations will honor. So, even as early as Genesis 49, we have what equates to prophecies. I mean, this is said in the spirit of like a blessing, but it's also a prophecy of a sort. But even this early, we essentially have prophecies tied to Jesus. So, if you think that, the Old Testament isn't worth looking into, I beg to differ. Partially because of things like this. Also, you could argue about the whole washing his clothes in wine line, kind of alluding a bit to Jesus and his suffering and things like that. But that's a bit more of a stretch, or at least a bit less direct. Anyway, all right. Anyway, those were my kind of further down the line thoughts regarding some of that, especially like verse 10 there. Seemed like something important to note for later. Anyway, let's continue on here. Verse 13. Zebulun will settle by the seashore and will be a harbor for ships. His borders will extend to Sidon. Okay, rather short pronouncement related to Zebulun. Somewhat positive, I guess. Certainly not as negative as the pronouncements upon Simeon and Levi, or even on Reuben. Not quite as positive as Judah, but if it's truly, prophetic pronouncements being made here, then it's not all going to be to a particular extreme or another. Verse 14. Issachar is a sturdy donkey, resting between two saddle packs. When he sees how good the countryside is and how pleasant the land, he will bend his shoulder to the load and submit himself to hard labor. Okay, so hard worker, essentially. He's saying Issachar is a hard worker who, it seems to imply that he would receive good things due in part to his hard work. Resting between two saddle packs, or sheepfolds or hearths, are other ways to translate the saddle packs term there, I guess. Anyway, verse 16. Dan will govern his people like any other tribe in Israel. Dan will be a snake beside the road, a poisonous viper along the path that bites the horse's hooves so its rider is thrown off. I trust in you for salvation, O Lord. Okay. Not quite sure what all that means. Because you would think poisonous viper, snakes are generally thought of as more kind of like treacherous, sneaky animals. So that comparison is interesting. But it could also just be that, the way that Dan and his descendants would make their living and or reputation would just more so be a matter of, kind of luring people in, possibly through some deception. I don't know. A few quick hits real quick through the next 3 verses. Verse 19. Gad will be attacked by marauding bands, but he will attack them when they retreat. Asher will dine on rich foods and produce food fit for kings. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. Okay. So, I guess Gad would fall on hard times and come under attack, but also be able to turn those attacks away. Asher and Naphtali, I'm not totally sure what to make of those, but I mean, those sound more positive than anything else, than any other description I could come up with. All right. Verse 22. Joseph is the foal of a wild donkey. The foal of a wild donkey at a spring. One of the wild donkeys on the ridge. Archers attacked him savagely. They shot at him and harassed him. But his bow remained taut, and his arms were strengthened by the hands of the mighty one of Jacob, by the shepherd, the rock of Israel. May the God of your father help you. May the Almighty bless you with the blessings of the heavens above, and blessings of the watery depths below, and blessings of the breasts and womb. May my fatherly blessings on you surpass the blessings of my ancestors, reaching to the heights of the eternal hills. May these blessings rest on the head of Joseph, who is a prince among his brothers. This footnote, or Joseph is a fruitful tree beside a spring. His branches reach over the wall. So there's some debate as to what the Hebrew there actually means. Trying to have an accurate English translation of that. But the whole fruitful tree thing is a bit more obvious in terms of, what the meaning would be behind that blessing. Like saying that he's going to be fruitful, have lots of descendants, and, be a significant name. But the whole wild donkey thing sounds a bit more, stubborn. But, the whole, being able to persist through his troubles kind of thing might make the wild donkey analogy a bit more appropriate, a bit more apt of a description. But, yeah, so that whole following section, I think, is just kind of a description of all the hard times that came upon him, and yet he still made it through and prospered. Also, blessings surpassing those of his ancestors, or of the ancient mountains. Okay. I'm a little less sure how that would tie in. Could be that Canaan was a mountainous region, and thus, I don't know. But anyway, long story short, great blessings upon Joseph. Anyway, alright. Verse 27. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf, devouring his enemies in the morning, and dividing his plunder in the evening. These are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said as he told his sons goodbye. He blessed each one with an appropriate message. Blessed? Some of those did not exactly sound like blessings to me, but whatever. Pronouncements might be kind of a more general and fitting term for all of that. That note about Benjamin, I don't know if the whole him being given extra portions by Joseph has anything to do with this. It did seem like in general he got more blessings and then was, literally devoured more. But anyway. Okay. Let's maybe wrap this up here. Verse 29. Then Jacob instructed them, "Soon I will die and join my ancestors. Bury me with my father and grandfather in the cave in the field of Ephron the Hittite, the cave that is in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, that Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite as a permanent burial site. There Abraham and his wife Sarah are buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah are buried. And there I buried Leah. It is the plot of land and the cave that my grandfather Abraham bought from the Hittites." When Jacob had finished this charge to his sons, he drew his feet into the bed, breathed his last, and joined his ancestors in death. So, I guess this chapter and the previous one were kind of more precise, more detailed descriptions of what happened prior to Jacob's death, as opposed to, earlier when it was kind of getting into the genealogy stuff, it was more like just, okay, here are the straight facts of his descendants and how long he lived and things like that. You can almost draw a comparison to, the creation accounts in Genesis 1 and 2, with 2 being a bit more of the detailed description compared with chapter 1, which was more of the, all right, here are the major points kind of thing. But anyway, okay. And that does it for chapter 49, or sorry, 49. I saw verse 29 there, and that's probably what made my brain think to say that. Anyway, okay, so that does it for chapter 49. Only one chapter left to go. We are this close to being done with Genesis. So make sure you come back for the next one if you want to, see the end of Genesis and get the remainder of my thoughts. But otherwise, you know what to do. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell, all that good stuff. Make sure you look down in the description for info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. And of course, leave comments down below that with any thoughts that you want to add. So, yeah, that's it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully, I'll see you for the next one. But until then, stay cool, people.